The envelope didn't have a return address, just my name, Elena Brooks, written across the front in a stiff, slanted hand I hadn't seen in over a decade. I almost tossed it out with the grocery flyers and local pizza coupons, but something about the way the ink had bled slightly at the edges made me pause. My fingers trembled as I slid a knife under the flap, already bracing myself for something I couldn't name. It was a funeral invitation. My father, Judge Gerald Delacroix, was dead. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the heavy cream cardstock like it might vanish if I blinked. It was formal, cold, black serif font, date, time, location, St. Augustine. Chapel in New Orleans, the city I left behind 12 years ago and swore I'd never return to. My mouth felt dry. I tried to summon something. Grief, anger, relief, but all I felt was stillness. A hollow quiet that stretched across my chest. Like frost. The man had cut me off like I never existed. And now this? I remembered the last time I saw him. Leo was barely a year old, buckled into the back seat while I sat behind the wheel, lips split open and a suitcase full of diapers and formula in the trunk. I'd fled my husband's fists, thinking home, real home, would take me in. But when I knocked on my father's door, he looked down at me and said, "You made your mess. Don't expect me to clean it." Then he closed the door. I didn't fall apart. I built something. A small book cafe in Baton Rouge, open 6 days a week. A quiet apartment above it. A life where Leo and I could breathe again. My father never called, never wrote. But I still sent envelopes. One every Christmas, each with a crisp $100 bill and no return address. I gave it to Miss Lillian, our old housekeeper, and asked her to deliver this. No explanation. I never told Leo. I never told anyone. I just did it. Now, staring at the letter, I couldn't help but whisper, "Why now?" A chair scraped behind me, and Leo's footsteps padded into the kitchen. He was 12 now, taller than he had any, right to be, with his father's cheekbones and my eyes. He looked at me, then at the envelope in my hands. "You okay?" he asked. I swallowed. "It's your grandfather," I said quietly. "He passed away." Leo blinked. "The judge?" I nodded. He pulled out a chair and sat across from me, chin in his hand. "You going to go?" I opened my mouth, closed it. I hadn't even said my father's name aloud in years. Going back to New Orleans felt like walking into fire barefoot. Then, Leo said, "Maybe he left more than a will, Mom. Maybe he left something for you." His words settled on my chest like a stone. I looked at him, my anchor, my reason, and something inside me shifted. Maybe it wasn't about him at all. Maybe it was about me, and about what was left unsaid. I folded the letter and pressed my palm flat over it. "I don't know what I'm walking into," I said quietly, "but I think I need to walk in anyway." Leo nodded, eyes steady. "I'll go with you." And just like that, we started packing. Not just bags, but memories, fears, and the weight of a name I hadn't spoken aloud in years. I was going back to New Orleans, back to the family that buried me long before my father ever died. The Delacroix Chapel hadn't changed. Same stained glass saints casting colored light on marble floors. Same mahogany pews, polished to the point of reflection. Everything was spotless, cold, precise, like my father had wanted even death to follow protocol. Leo walked beside me in his black blazer, hand tucked into mine. His grip was tight, almost protective. He had never met my father. The man never asked to. But Leo knew this wasn't just a funeral. It was a return to a place that had once spat me out. Whispers started before we even crossed the threshold. A woman near the door lowered her sunglasses and nudged her husband. A cousin I barely recognized gasped softly, then quickly looked away. We took slow steps down the aisle. My heels clicked too loudly in the silence. Isabel was at the front, draped in a black designer dress, hair pulled into a perfect chignon. Her husband Connor stood beside her, hands clasped in front like he was attending a board meeting. She turned, caught my eye, and smiled. It wasn't kind. Well, well, she whispered, just loud enough for the surrounding pews to hear. Look who wants her share. A few people chuckled softly. Julian, seated behind her, leaned out and said with a grin, "Thought you'd show. Never could resist the spotlight." I said nothing. I didn't flinch, but my spine stiffened and I tightened my grip on Leo's hand. We sat at the very back, the far corner, invisible. I didn't come here to fight. I didn't come to be seen. I came to say goodbye. The service started. A priest with a voice like syrup read pre-written prayers. People cried politely. There were speeches, one from Isabel, painting my father as a pillar of family and tradition, and another from Julian, remembering long weekends fishing with him on Lake Pontchartrain. No one mentioned me. Not once. It was like I'd never existed. The ache wasn't new, but it still hurt. Leo rested his head on my shoulder. His presence kept me grounded. The final hymn played. People stood. I remained seated. Not to be dramatic, but because I couldn't move. My legs had gone numb under the weight of all the silence. As the crowd filed out, a few nodded stiffly my way. A second cousin offered a quick, guilty glance, then turned and left. Isabel brushed past me like I was furniture. Julian paused just long enough to lean in and whisper, "You've got guts coming back. Don't get too comfortable. This isn't your story anymore." I met his eyes, calm, steady. "Neither did I," I replied. He blinked, caught off guard, and walked away. Leo squeezed my hand. We sat a moment longer before rising. The chapel behind us, the real test was just ahead, my father's house. The Delacroix estate loomed like a monument to everything I wasn't allowed to be. Grand, curated, powerful. White pillars rose against the gray sky, ivy curling like claws across the brick facade. The house had always felt too big, too cold. It still did. We stepped into a foyer full of ghosts. Chatter, clinking glasses, perfume hanging thick in the air. You wouldn't know someone had died unless you looked closely and realized no one had mentioned his name since the chapel. "Look who finally came home," someone muttered as we passed the buffet. Leo stayed close to me, clutching my coat sleeve. I kept mine on. I couldn't bring myself to take it off, to pretend I belonged. Near the fireplace, Isabel was already swirling white wine in a crystal glass. Julian lounged beside her, sipping scotch with an easy smirk. "Didn't expect her to actually show," he said loudly. "She was cut off years ago." Laughter. Nervous, controlled. I ignored it. Leo did too, but I could feel the tension in his shoulders. He was watching, reading the room the way only a child raised in trauma can. We found 2 chairs tucked away near the French doors, far from the hearth, far from them. The house hadn't changed inside either. Same framed portraits of Isabel, and Julian's achievements lined the hallways. College graduations, law school diplomas, charity galas. Not one photo of me, not even from childhood. It was surgical, how they erased me. Then came the shift. The room quieted slightly as the door opened again. In walked Mr. Benton, our father's attorney. Same gray suit, same leather briefcase. But this time, he carried something else. A small, polished cedar box under his arm. He gave a single nod to the room. "Thank you all for coming," he said. His voice cut through the chatter like a blade. Per Judge Delacroix's instructions, we will begin with a video message before proceeding to the formal reading of his will. Isabel rolled her eyes. "A video? Seriously?" Julian sighed. "Let's just get this over with. Some of us have better things to do." Mr. Benton said nothing. He walked to the front of the room, placed the cedar box on the coffee table near the fireplace, and set up a small screen and speaker system from his briefcase. Leo sat up straighter. His hand slipped out of mine. I looked down at him, surprised. His face, usually wary, was suddenly calm, hopeful, like he'd been waiting for something. And for the first time since arriving, I didn't feel alone. The screen flickered to life, and my father's face filled the room. The screen hummed quietly before settling into focus. There he was, my father, older, gaunter, the sharp lines. of his face had softened, not from kindness, but time. He sat behind his oak desk, the one I wasn't even allowed to touch as a child. Behind him hung the old oil painting of the bayou, untouched by years or sentiment. Then he spoke. "If Elena is watching this," he began, voice lower than I remembered, roughened by something deeper than age, "then I suppose I got one thing right before the end." The room stilled. You could hear the ice melt in the untouched glasses. I've lived my life with rules. I believed in consequences, structure, reputation. He paused, his jaw working as if swallowing something sharp. "But when you showed up on my doorstep 12 years ago, bruised, shaking, clutching your child, I didn't offer you protection. I offered you judgment." Gasps murmured across the room. Isabel shifted in her seat. Julian's expression darkened. "I told myself I was doing the right thing, teaching you a lesson, upholding the family's dignity," he continued. "But the truth is, I failed you." My throat tightened. Leo leaned closer. "I didn't understand then. I do now, and I see what I couldn't see before. You were strong enough to leave. You saved yourself. You saved your son. And I turned my back on you because I couldn't face my own failure." He stopped for a long second, then looked into the camera like he could see me through it. "I know you sent money. Every Christmas. Through Lillian. I recognized your handwriting. You didn't even sign it. You just gave." I felt my breath hitch. No one in the room dared move. "You showed love when I gave none. You cared when I pretended you didn't exist. And I watched from afar what Lillian told me about your cafe, about Leo, about how he looks at the world like you do, with patience." He smiled, soft and tired, and it cracked something in me. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Elena, but if there's anything I can leave you, let it be this. I was wrong. You were brave, you were right, and I am proud of you." Gasps rippled like waves. Someone swore under their breath. Isabel's wineglass trembled slightly in her hand. Julian stared hard at the floor. Then my father's voice softened. "They don't know I changed the will, but they will soon." The screen dimmed to black. Silence swept the room like a thunderclap. And for the first time in my life, I felt seen, not as a mistake, not as a scandal, as a daughter. Mr. Benton adjusted his glasses and opened a leather folder on his lap. The pages were thick, embossed with seals and signatures. "The video was to provide context," he said. "Now per Judge Delacroix amended and notarized. Last will and testament, we will proceed with the formal allocations." Isabel sat up straighter. Julian leaned back, smug again. "To my daughter, Elena Marie Brooks," Mr. Benton read, "I leave the Delacroix estate in its entirety, including all furnishings, heirlooms, and land." The room snapped to attention. "In addition, I leave to Ms. Brooks the sum of $250,000 in liquid assets and full ownership of the Blue Magnolia Cafe property in Baton Rouge." People turned to look at me. My blood roared in my ears. "And to Leo Benjamin Brooks, I leave a college trust fund in the amount of $100,000. Leo turned to me, stunned. I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. Mr. Benton flipped a page. "To my children, Isabelle Claire Delacroix and Julian Francis Delacroix, I leave the following items. A first edition of Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England, my old naval compass. And the family Bible gifted to me by my mother." A sharp sound, something between a laugh and a gasp, escaped Isabel's lips. "This is a joke," she whispered, eyes wide. "This has to be a joke." Julian stood, fists clenched. He was sick, confused. He pointed at me. "She got to him." Mr. Benton didn't flinch. "Your father amended the will 2 years ago, at the peak of his health. The documents are fully legal, witnessed and registered with Orleans." "Perish," Julian sputtered. Isabel's mouth opened and closed without a word. Mr. Benton wasn't finished. "There is a note attached. Judge Delacroix requested it be read aloud." He pulled out a handwritten page. The attorney's voice softened as he read, "Let them remember who showed up when it mattered. Let them remember who gave, even when she had nothing. This house, this name, should belong to the one person who never stopped loving, even when she was forgotten. Isabel stood too fast. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You tricked him," she screamed. "There's no way he meant this." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The video had already said everything. "You manipulated him!" Isabel shrieked, her voice rising like steam from a boiling kettle. Her face was flushed red, her wineglass forgotten on the mantel, trembling with leftover rage. Julian stepped forward, voice low but venomous. "You think you can walk back in here after 12 years and steal what we built? You don't deserve any of it." I didn't move. I didn't respond. Because none of it was stolen. It was returned. Mr. Benton calmly closed the will folder and said, "Judge Delacroix was of sound mind. The changes were notarized, witnessed, and filed 2 full years before his health began to decline. There are surveillance tapes from my office that confirm it. He came alone, spoke clearly, made every decision without coercion." Julian's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth again, but Mr. Benton's expression stopped him cold. It was the stare of a man who had spent his life dismantling lies in courtrooms. Cold. Certain. Final. Guests had started to slip out the side door, whispering, avoiding eye contact. No one offered comfort to Isabel or Julian. Not a single hand reached out. Not this time. Leo leaned into me, eyes wide but steady. "He really did it," he whispered. "He actually did it." I swallowed hard. He did. The air in the room had shifted. Not in my favor, just away from them. The power they thought they had cracked and scattered like broken glass underfoot. "You're not walking away with this," Julian muttered. "You already did," I said softly. Isabel slammed the wineglass on the sideboard, too hard. It cracked down the stem, a jagged line that mirrored the one forming on her composure. "This is a damn joke," she snapped. "It's charity, pity. It means nothing." Then she turned and stormed from the room. Julian followed, muttering curses under his breath, dragging his disbelief like a shadow behind him. And just like that, the empire that had exiled me tried to pretend it didn't crack. But it had, and I was still standing in its center. The house was quiet now, not empty, just still, like it had exhaled for the first time in years. Leo and I moved through the hallways slowly. He peeked into old rooms like they were museum exhibits. He laughed softly when he found a grand piano in the parlor, untouched and perfectly in tune. In my father's study, I paused. The oak desk still sat in its corner, the same spot it had always held like a throne. I opened the bottom drawer, the one that was always locked. Now it slid open easily. Inside were small bundles wrapped in tissue paper. I gently unfolded one, a crayon drawing, a house with stick figures. Me plus Daddy scrawled across the bottom. Another bundle, a photo of me in 3rd grade, gap-toothed and smiling at a science fair. A sealed envelope lay beneath, them addressed in my father's hand. "To Elena, when you're ready." I sat in his old leather chair and opened it slowly. "I lied, Elena. I kept everything. The day I told you to leave, I didn't stop being your father. I was just too proud to admit I didn't know how to love someone stronger than me. You didn't fail this family. I did. And I hope, wherever I am now, you'll believe this. I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to show it in time. I didn't cry. I'd shed those tears years ago. But I whispered softly to the empty room, 'Goodbye, Dad. I forgive you.' And the words didn't sting. They landed like they had been waiting all along. Leo burst in, face bright. 'Mom, there's a sunroom upstairs with huge windows. Can I make it my art space?' I smiled. 'Yes, baby. This house is yours now.' Weeks passed. The mansion didn't feel like a mausoleum anymore. It felt lived in. Leo had transformed the sunroom into a studio. Each morning, I found him sketching the birds in the garden. Blue jays, cardinals, even the occasional hawk circling above. His laughter floated through the halls, a sound this house had never known. One morning, a letter arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address, just my name again. I recognized the script instantly, Miss Lillian. Inside was a short note. Your father read every letter you sent. Every Christmas he sat with it for hours. Never told anyone. But I saw the way his hands shook when he held your envelope. He never said it, Elena, but he was proud of the woman you became. I folded the letter and stepped onto the porch. The garden swayed with spring light. Leo sat on the steps, sketchpad in his lap, tongue poking out as he shaded a hawk's wings. He saw me in the end, I whispered, not to anyone in particular, but I think the wind heard me. And maybe, so did he. They tried to erase me. But I was never gone. I was just waiting for the truth to come home.